in the chat, go ahead and do that so we can see who you are and where you're coming from. Thanks for doing that already. As I just mentioned a minute ago, this second AIA learning community it's been in the works a long time. We did our first one with 8 teams. It started in January 2018 and ended August 2019. And that next fall, we started preparing for leading a second one. And we were hoping to do that next year. And obviously COVID hit. And so we kind of postponed for a short period of time and had to postpone again. So it's been a long time coming and I'm ready to get this thing started. So let's see if I can mute some of these guys. There we go. So if you can turn on your video, but mute your audio for us so we can see you but not hear you, that would be great. So we've been working on this for a long time and praying and trusting the Lord, and it's finally here. And we need to continue to pray because as we've learned the last year and a half, 2 years, we have to hold things with open hands. So continue to be prayerful with us that we will move forward towards our launch January 2022. So this is my third learning community that I've participated in or helped lead. The first one I did was with a group of churches through 3DM 2013 and 2014 with our team, which was University of Minnesota at the time. A few years later, like I said, we launched the first AIA learning community, 2018, 2019, and then this is our second one. So I'm going to be experiencing the biblical teaching, the discipleship groups, the tools for the third time. And it's so good every time I get to experience it. It's so helpful. It's practical. And it's honestly, it's changed my life. Like it's not just the tools, but the experience, the relationships I've built, the mentors and disciplers that have come into my life through the learning community experience. It's changed my relationships. It's changed how I think about ministry. It's changed our family to become a family on mission, which you'll hear more about through the learning community. And it's for sure changed our ministry here in the Twin Cities for years to come. So as you'll hear more about the learning community and 3DM, it's not simply about getting some new tools for your discipleship on campus, which you will get some new tools. But it's more about a holistic approach to looking at and learning from the life of Jesus. Not only what he said in his word, not only what he did in his works, but also the way of Jesus. How did he live? What was the way he made disciples? What was the way he empowered this unlikely group of men that ended up changing the course of human history forever, which it leads to us being here today. The learning community is not about simply replicating what other campuses do or have done in discipleship. It's more about being immersed into a discipling culture, an environment where you can be trained to discern what is God saying to me through his word, through my circumstances and experiences. What is he saying to our team? And then what is he calling us to do to empower missional disciples in our context? Well, you'll learn a lot more about that once you get here in January. We hope this will impact your relationship with God, how you think about the Lord, who Jesus is, how you walk with him, for sure. We hope this impacts your family or your life as a single leader. And definitely we hope this will impact how you empower missional leaders on campus and beyond, maybe even in your churches, that we would all become disciples who make disciples, who make disciples, who make disciples. So learning community, it's not an AIA thing. We have, through this partnership with 3DM, which is a global disciple-making movement, we've formed a really unique and fun partnership to help work together to bring this experience, the tools and the training into an AIA context and also FCA context. We'll have FCA staff with us in January And FCA has also done their own learning community the past few years too. So this is really bleeding out into this athletic ministry space over the last 5 or 10 years, which is really exciting. So let me just quickly introduce our core team. So this is the group of leaders who are helping to bring lift to the learning community training that's been doing a lot of work over the last 2 years to prepare for January finally. So let's see, we have Gina Mueller, who you'll hear from in a minute. Per Nielsen is also with 3DM. He's a local pastor here in the Twin Cities, and his son is getting married today, so he's not on the call. I think he's officiating the wedding, but he'll be with us in January. Jeremy Snowberger works with FCA and is also working with the 3DM team, and will help bring some training. So those three are kind of coming from the 3DM side mainly, and Jeremy's also a practitioner, if you will, with the Twin Cities ministry and team. Then we have a group of staff in Minneapolis who are on the core team. My wife, Christina, and myself. We have Mel Jones, who's on the Twin Cities AIA team. Karen Kastner, who's the director of training and development. She lives in Minneapolis. And then Katie Stinchfield will be bringing some administrative help. She's a volunteer with us. And last but not least, we have 3 staff on the 937 team who will be serving on our core team: Jared Wellman, Amy Bromberg, and Stuart Grand Leonard. So you'll get to hear a lot more from them and learn from them in January. But let me turn it over to Gina Mueller, who I've known about 10 years now, since our first learning community with 3DM. She was one of the main teachers and trainers, practitioners through that experience. And I've just had a really great experience learning from her and now leading with her and continuing to learn from her in the AIA learning community space. So she's gonna introduce herself a little more and highlight a little bit about our schedule in January.
Awesome. Hi, you guys. So my family and I live out in Maine. You saw on the little introduction that I stuck in the app. We used to live with Luke, not with Luke, in the same city as Luke in Minnesota. But now we live in Maine, which is still wintry and snowy. And so we moved our family out here. You'll hear much more of my story. I get to lead 3DM North America. So 3DM has different kind of training hubs all around the globe. The scope of my leadership is North America. And so I'm really, really excited to be with you guys. I want to set up kind of what a learning community is really quickly. The learning community environment, you'll notice that we call each of the kind of live in-person training events that your teams will come to, we call them immersions on purpose. I'm sure that you're familiar with conference culture. And if you've been to a conference, I know my experience at conferences, they're really fun and you get to hear from a lot of experts in a lot of fields and you take a lot of notes, and sometimes you stick the notes on a shelf and you don't look at them again. And sometimes it feels hard to actually take those things like the fire hose of information and actually put it into practice. So that's not what we are doing. Those are great, but they serve a different purpose. This is an immersion where we really want to immerse you in the kind of culture that we want to coach and train you how to create back in your own context, your own spaces. And so there's a few different components that make up a learning community immersion kind of environment. The first thing is teaching. So you'll notice we're going to have multiple different kind of teaching inputs that the team will share with you. Those are really meant to do a couple things. Yes, we want to kind of teach and train you in things, but we first want to set up a biblical framework for it. Everything for us really goes back to the way of Jesus. So you'll notice that we're gonna dig into scripture together and really unpack. Obviously, Jesus tells us to make disciples, but how, right? How do we dig underneath the surface to get at the texture of that and figure out how he did those things? So the teaching is really meant to cast vision, but also offer a real rich kind of biblical framework. So the teaching spaces, and then we set up training spaces. We call those social spaces because we're going to split the group into a smaller size, and you're going to do this by team. And the social space environments are like team trainings where we help you take everything that you're going to be learning, all the information pieces that you're going to be learning, and actually contextualize it to your exact context. So you're going to be applying everything as a team, kind of wrestling stuff to the ground together as a team and figuring out what does this look like for us on our team with our team makeup, on the campuses that we're serving. How do we actually put these things into practice, which is going to be different, slightly different from the other teams in the room. So we want to help you figure out how to do that. So that's the training spaces. We're going to have huddle or discipleship group time. So you'll have things to talk about as a team, but then we really want to help you process things on a personal level, which is the huddle or the discipleship groups time where you get to wrestle through what's God saying to me and what am I going to do about it. There's going to be lunches and coffee breaks, time to kind of connect relationally with everybody and take a breath. But the big thing about a learning community immersion is that it's not just about information transfer from a bunch of experts. It's really about us offering our lives for you to imitate from the perspective of practitioners. So anyone that you hear from is going to be somebody who's not just like, an expert at the content or like a great communicator, but anyone that you hear from that's helping with the training is a practitioner, which means we've all done this. We're a few steps ahead. We've worked out how to put it into practice in our own life and ministry contexts. And then lastly, your team is going to craft a 6-month plan that's unique to you. And so every team is going to leave this next immersion with a strategic plan that your team comes up with that's a response to what you feel like God's been saying to you together.
Thanks, Gina. Do you want to mention kind of what the huddles or discipleship groups look like and how that fits in with the teaching and social space?
Yeah, sure. So we want you to experience some of the vehicles that we're going to teach you how to use in your own context. So huddles or discipleship groups are like the vehicle that we use for discipleship. And so you'll get to experience a few of the tools that Luke talked about. My observation is that there's a lot of people that are talking about discipleship. But the question that we're all asking is, cool, we know that Jesus is calling us to make disciples, but how? And so we want to offer some tools that have been really helpful at really seeing disciples develop the character of Jesus, but also learn how to do the things that Jesus did. And so part of huddle is processing, learning how to hear God's voice and respond. And kind of practicing you'll get exposed and access to some of the tools that we use in discipleship.
That's great. Another, I guess, vehicle you could call it or space to do discipleship ministry is Missional Community. You'll hear more about that down the road in the journey, but that's another kind of space that will help create, not so that you replicate it, but that you get a taste and a personal experience of kind of larger spaces where you can invite friends and family, students maybe that don't yet know Christ to experience the kingdom of God. So we'll have some fun times together in the evening to just be and to worship and to connect. And the hope is that that's really good for you, but also is something that you could think about contextualizing on your campuses. So I am going to pass it over to Amy Bromberg now, and she is going to interview a couple of staff who have been through the learning community before. And if you have questions, any of you who are listening to things that are being shared, write them down. We're going to have a little time at the end for Q&A. So just kind of tuck those away till the end. So Amy, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'm Amy Bromberg and I'm the co-LTL of the 937 team with Jared Wellman. And even just hearing Gina like talking about the learning community, I'm just thinking about when I was in your shoes about 3 years ago And I remember having so many questions and like hearing what it's supposed to be like, what we're going to experience. And it's just hard to really grasp it, I think, until you get there. So, but one of my favorite things, Gina, as you were sharing there, I love the huddles. I mean, to be in a group of 5 or 6 other female LTLs, and to have a space to really connect with them and to hear more about like, what's God saying to you in the midst of what we're learning. Yeah, just those relationships but were built really well. And I really was able to use a lot of that, on campus when we went back home. So this time here is I'd like to introduce you to 3 different of our staff who have experienced the Learning Community Round 1. And our first staff, he is the LTL at Georgia Southern, which I did not realize that he actually played football. Maybe some of you knew this, that he played football at Georgia Southern. And his wife, Colleen, was on the soccer team there. So they have 3 kids, Hope, Kennedy, and Berkeley. 4. You're gonna have to let us in on that, Matt. So our first interviewee is Matt Wise. So Matt, go and unmute there. And the question I have for Matt, Matt, could you tell us how did your experience at the Learning Community impact your life, your team, and your ministry? And tell us why you're coming back this year.
Hello, Amy. It's good to see all y'all. Cannot wait for January. Make sure you dress warm because it is freezing in Minnesota. Being from Georgia, that was a shock. So we have 4 kids. So we have a 3-week-old little girl. Cameron was born. So I am a girl dad officially for life. So, for our team, I'll just give you a little background. When I was in college, I was discipled by a guy that was a part of campus outreach. I came on staff with FCA right after college, and then I transferred over to AIA in 2013. And so I had so many different resources and discipleship processes from different ministries that it was just kind of all over the place. And when I caught the vision and heard about Learning Community, it was really, it intrigued me because number one, I was a solo staff for so many years. I desired to be a part of a team and have a team. And then just with the framework of LC, and then going through the process and giving me one of the things that we talk about in there is family on mission, and just really how a lot of times I felt I was doing kind of family and mission. Me and my wife were separate. She was a nurse and they came on staff with me and having kids. So for us, it was giving us a framework of how do we go on mission together as a family. And then as we go through the discipleship processes, we go through of taking all these resource materials, how do we implement it into, going after our mission. And I think what I loved about it is it just gave us the framework of how language creates culture and how Jesus actually did ministry. And I was like, why are we trying to recreate the wheel? And so it really kind of gave us a foundation to go after that and build team. And so, and since then we've actually added full-time staff. We have student staff joining us at this Learning Community. So I went there with 2 interns and I'm going back with full-time staff and more interns. So it's been pretty cool to see how God's just used that from just family on mission and just our movement and what God's doing at Georgia Southern.
That's awesome, Matt. Is there anything, I didn't send you this question, but is there anything you really would hope to see, just take place for your team now that your team has grown? Like, I'm assuming it's going to be a little bit different of an experience this time around, but anything in particular that you're looking forward to or hoping to see God do as your team has grown?
Probably, I know they're probably going to crucify me so much going through this process. No, I would say that what I'm looking forward to is just having them be there and experience it, because one of the things that I loved about Learning Community also was being around other staff and being there with each other and just having a lot of table talk, asking questions, digging together, and really coming up with a strategic plan. Like, how can we go after this mission and vision that God's called us to do? And so I'm really excited for them to see the same things that I saw, to experience what I've experienced, just for them for us to grow together and kind of experience that. So really excited for that. And I think they've heard us talk about a lot of these concepts with, building discipling culture and, just from organized, organic, and all these different kind of concepts. And language creates culture. So now I'm excited for them to actually like live it out. Leadership Square, Kairos moment. So I'm kind of excited for them to actually like hear it, see it, and then they continue to implement and live it out in their own discipleship process.
Yeah, that's awesome, Matt. I know, like, as an LTL, I felt the similar way, like, just to have a space for even our senior staff and our whole team to process where we're all on the same playing field. You know, it's not like the LTL is leading it, but learning community creating a space for us as a team to really process what God's showing us, you know, in terms of our campus ministry. So I'm with you on that. All right, well, thanks, Matt. We're going to transition to Christina Middendorf. I see her in the room there. And Christina, what we would love for you to speak to is specifically, I've heard like you have a heart for primary caregivers, and that I heard you kind of have like a newer role more recently, pouring into some new staff and interns, maybe doing some team leader training. So yeah, would love to hear from you. Just what the question I have is, how would the learning community be helpful for non-LTLs and primary caregivers? So just go ahead and speak in on that.
Yeah. Hi, guys. Sorry to be joining you late. I don't know what Luke updated you on, but this is the reality of mom and primary caregiver on staff, as our kids should be in school for another hour and a half, but because of a winter storm, they got released early. So here I am juggling both things, which all of us know well, but especially if you have kids at home. So I just want to speak to specifically the primary caregivers on a team, whether you serve in an LTL role or just our senior staff or new staff on your team. There is a lot required of you to come and be here. And I'm guessing you are thinking, is it really worth it? Is it worth it for me to find childcare and come to the land of the cold frozen tundra in January? Why would I do that? And when we first went through the learning community, our daughter, Molly, who's now 8, was an infant. And so I was like, I needed her to come with me. I was finding a random room in the church to nurse her in. We brought a pack and play and she napped in a closet. It was a whole ordeal. And there were moments where I thought, this is not worth it. But now on the flip side, 8 years later, the content that we engaged with and the principles we learned at the learning community has been so helpful to me way beyond campus ministry. Concepts we've learned at the learning community, we use in caring for our neighbors on our street. I think about it as I think about relationships I have at my kids' public school and being on mission there. And it has transformed the way we parent and the way we hear from the Lord, and that affects our family. And so I would say there is gold and treasure for you as a mom who has maybe engaged a ton in your campus ministry or maybe engaged just a little bit. I believe that God has something for you here, and it would be worth the effort to come. That being said, I know that things can change on the drop of a hat. So I think all of you should have received an email from me a few weeks ago just introducing myself. If I can answer any questions or be a sounding board for concerns you might have or just want to verbally process, I'm very happy to do that. So please reach out.
All right, thanks, Christina. And she sincerely means what she just said. So, Christina, you're pretty quick at getting back to. I appreciate that about you. Before joining the learning community, I had never met Christina Middendorf, and I think it's been neat to see, just that growing relationship, because I don't think we had ever really talked a whole lot, and there have been some needs I've had just on campus as an LTL and reached out to you, and I just appreciate your wisdom, and you're always like, you make yourself available. I'll put it that way. So also mention, I'm married to my husband, Jason, and this is a little bit different of a category, but, and so I'm actually spouse on spouse affiliate, SOSA. And so if any of you maybe are in that category, like, feel free to reach out, because I know when we initially began, like, I wasn't really concerned about that, but definitely I wanted my husband to be in the loop in terms of, we're starting a 2-year learning community experience where there's just so much that God will be showing you. And I definitely wanted to see, like, how can my husband and I, like, how can he learn some of the things, you know, as a 6th grade school teacher, how can he learn some of the things that I'm learning? But there's just no way I can communicate everything that God's showing me. And so yeah, just if there's any questions about that, feel free to reach out to me. There is, I think it might be the second immersion is, correct me if I'm wrong, Luke, is focused on family on mission. And that was one thing that, for me, I thought, well, I'll invite Jason to come to the family on mission immersion. So he actually came with our staff team and spent 3 days, you know, with all of our campus staff. It's a little different space, right, when you're not full-time staff. But boy, he learned so much and came back and said, wow, what does it look like for us to make adjustments so that we can have students in our home more often? You know, and for us, that actually led to moving closer to campus. So yeah, just wanted to share that as well, for any of you who might have a spouse who is not full-time staff with Athletes in Action. So we're going to transition to our next interview with Stuart Leonard. Stuart, got to know him super well. He's on the 937 team and senior staff, all things operations, loves football. I mean, really enjoys Stuart. His wife's name is Jen, and he has 2 boys, Knox and Zeke. So Stu, just going to ask you to share about what, how was your experience with the learning community like when you came home, in terms of how did it practically impact your family life, your campus life? Just how did it impact you personally?
Hey, thanks, Amy. Glad to be here, guys. Kind of going with a theme that has been brought up is, as senior staff in 2018, coming with Jared and Amy, there's 3 of us, right? And being the finance operation guys for our team, I'm looking at the cost, I'm looking at our budget, I'm looking at our operating account, and I'm like, how in the world is this going to work? But, and I was on the fence, right? Like, honestly, I was not sure if this was gonna be worth it, but looking back on it, right, I would have paid double, right, or 3 times what we got. So much out of it. This time we're bringing 9 full-time staff back with us, and that is a direct result of the learning community. Just in our team health on campus and thinking through just ministry, right? There's one thing that we'll do. I'm not sure if we'll do this at the first immersion or when this was, but we did like a stop-start analysis. Like, what do we need to stop doing and what do we need to start doing? And we decided at the immersion that we're all going, the 3 of us and our volunteers, we're going to focus at Wright State University. We were going to be together. We were going to be family on mission at one campus. And through that, we started that. We did a weekly meeting, and then it was maybe a next immersion or another, like a year and a half. I forget when it was exactly the timeline, but we stopped doing the weekly meeting to focus more on discipleship groups, right? And this was a big transition for our students because they loved the weekly meeting, but we weren't seeing the fruit from it. It was just something where people came, there wasn't a ton of growth. We started focusing primarily on discipleship groups, and 2 of the students that were involved in that are now on our staff team, Eric and Haley, who you'll meet in January. And I think just overall staff health, team communication, common language is something that will be talked about a lot, and just going after it together in a healthy way. Then, sorry, let me look at my notes here. Yeah, team health. We started doing team half days with the Lord every month, and those have been incredible for our team and ministry, and for me personally, just to learn and grow. Someone leads it every month. And then we also did missional communities, like the family on mission. We took a step further, right? We're a staff team family, right? And being on mission together, growing and doing things outside of work together to get to know each other. And then, so I joined full-time in 2015. So this was 3 years into ministry, and the learning community was great for me because I am not a highly relational person like a lot of people in Athletes in Action and ministry. I'm operations, finance, sit behind a computer, but I also enjoy the relational side of things. Like Jared Wellman can spend 9 hours on campus and come home fully recharged and like jump right into all of his family activities. And I spend 2 or 3 hours on campus and I'm dead. Like I'm coming home and just barely giving enough to my family. And out of the learning community, I realized that. I realized that I was training under Jared and I was exhausted, and the Lord builds us all differently, right? And it's okay that I'm different than Jared. And I think leadership wise and family wise, that really helped me. And it really helped me see that I was not resting enough. I needed more rest than Jared did, or different kinds of rest than Jared did. And other AIA staff people that I got to know through the immersion. And then also like family on mission, right? I started hosting every once a month Sunday lunches at my house, where I invited all the guys in my discipleship groups, and where they could just come. They would come and play Wii with my boys. We were getting dinner ready, play basketball after lunch. And that was something that I started from the immersion, and just including, family more into things. And I think those things, right? You think about, like, you don't have to go to the learning community immersion to realize those things, but I just realized the importance of them. And leaving the immersions, right? Like I was excited to start implementing and seeing things. And now looking back on it, that we're bringing 9 people on our staff team back with us. And we're healthy. And also to say, like, we've said no for people to join our team. Like, people have wanted to join our team, and we've said no because they wouldn't be a good fit personality and team wise. And even though we want more laborers on our team, you got to find the right people to join the team and to be healthy. And yeah, I think that's what I got. Thanks, Amy.
Thanks, Stuart. What a great testimony. And I hope you've, for all of you who are on the call, started to hear and see some of the unique elements that sets apart the learning community from a lot of the trainings and conferences we have within Athletes in Action, as well as FCA. This is going to feel different than new staff orientation or new staff conference, LTL training, whatever type of training you've been a part of. One, because you're with a team doing it together, experiencing the same teaching and all being pushed to process those things together. As well as there's going to be a lot of different types of people in the room. This is not just the AIA conference. This is a 3DM training, a global disciple-making movement, and we're sitting under their teaching, not just to learn content, but to watch and to reflect and to contextualize that back on our campuses. We will also have FCA staff in the room. We will have ministry partners, board members in the room. We'll have student staff from Georgia Southern, 3 awesome ladies I've heard a lot about. Look forward to meeting you here in Minneapolis. We'll have volunteers, people from local churches. So it's going to be unique. We just have about 5 or 10 minutes left, and we're going to use the rest of the time as some Q&A for you guys. So Gina and I will answer questions, and you could either pose that, just unmute yourself and share. If we don't have time to get to all the questions, put it in the chat and we'll respond to you via email that way. So I will say a common question that a few staff have asked are COVID protocols. So we're aware of that. We're thinking, we're trying to be very thoughtful about the reality here in the Twin Cities, what our local protocols are, the protocols of the church that is hosting us in Minneapolis, and also knowing wherever you live might be different. So what we're asking for you is to come under the protocols here in Minneapolis of our local government, as well as to honor the church that's allowing us to be in their space, and to honor staff who might be in a different place than you with their own health or their family, or just their personal priorities. So you're going to get a sheet from me in the next week that our core team has spoken into that will give more detail on what those protocols will be, but just know that that's coming. All right, let's see, any questions you can put in the chat or just shout them out for Gina or myself. Don't be shy.
I just personally am hoping that I don't leave the learning community with a beard. I saw that. That would be awkward.
Me
So.
too. We can just sit here too. I am not afraid of awkward silence. If you've spent time with me, you know that.
The best was.
If you have food questions when you're here, we would definitely want to help you, but the somewhat embarrassing part is Matt Wise finds the best food spots even more than us. His Yelp game is strong, so check in with Matt from his time here, as well as once you get here, he will do some good research for you on walleye, the best Thai food.
We will have a Google map specific for the learning community with some great places that are really near the church where we're going to be, best coffee shops, restaurants. The church is in our neighborhood and it's one of the best eating neighborhoods in the Twin Cities, I would say. So you will not be shy on good food.
And if you watch Elf, obviously, you know that that's where the world's greatest cup of coffee is at. But I will say in the Mall of America, I saw Ryan's question on that. So one of the things I try to get our team to go there early just to experience Mall of America. If you've never been, it's something really cool. Check out. They got a full amusement park in the middle of it. It's pretty amazing. So they have tons of places to eat in Mall of America. If you can get there early to check that out, I would definitely do it.
Luke, I appreciate.
Hey, Luke, go for it.
Luke, I appreciate your intentionality and just thinking through COVID things and taking the slow time to just be sensitive to all the full spectrum on that. So one, I appreciate that. Secondly, a vastly more important question. What is the space going to look like on Monday night to watch the college football national championship?
Yeah, we had the last learning community too is that night. So we have two options. That will be one of the times you'll get to experience, we call it a mock missional community. So kind of this larger group space to be a part of that's communal, that can be outreach focused for you. But we have two different locations and both of them have TVs available, but you're not going to be forced to watch. There'll be non-TV spaces too. So they'll be a part of the night, but not the main focus. Good question.
Hey, Luke, are we going to have the same like whiteboard or big sticky note set up, or do we need to like plan on bringing that if we're driving? Because it's not at the same place as last year.
Good
Right.
question.
Yep. Different location. We'll be at a church and we will have large sticky notes for you and
Okay.
some other goodies to help you. Yep.
Are there any shuttles or carpools from the airport? You guys provide that?
What's up, Nikita? Yep. We will be sending out a list of those of you who've given me your flight information, kind of the main times on that Sunday that people are flying in. We will not have shuttles necessarily, but there might be some staff or people who are either live here or who have already come in that would want to help get people from the airport to their location. So it'll kind of be up to you to look at who else is coming in at, around the time you are, and I'll get that information out to you so you can see flight times based on what I've received. And then, Tanya, about if you're not able to attend this immersion, we will be recording those teaching inputs that Gina mentioned. So you will miss some of the breakout times But we'll be recording those and getting those to you shortly after the immersion if you want to catch up on that.
So I don't really understand. I was looking at the 3DM website and there's a thing on there called hubs. I don't know. Can you elaborate on that for me? Like, what is a hub, and is it worth like our team connecting to a hub if it's close to us to get some extra insight and training? And
Ooh, that's a really great question. Okay, so 3DM is organized into regional hubs, which gives us greater flexibility to contextualize to each region of the country, because missional context is very different here in Maine than it is in South Carolina, than it is in Utah. And so it's helpful for our teams to be able to really contextualize to the different ministry contexts and the missional context as we're training people. And so wherever you see kind of, if you go to the 3DM website, you'll see that we have regional hubs around the US. And that means that there is team that lives there or in that region that would be super happy to do some extra stuff with you. And there may be some moments where that feels helpful kind of during this process, for sure. After the process, for like ongoing support, there's all kinds of opportunities and things that 3DM does kind of on a wider scale, even on a more kind of like national level, or things that you guys are welcome to plug into with us that will have less of like, this will have a real AIA specific flavor and kind of like athletic kind of flavor. The wider 3DM stuff, you'll find that there's churches that are from all kind of denominational backgrounds, as well as lots of different kind of nonprofits, campus ministries, denominations, all kinds of sort of things. So yeah, hope that helps.
Good question, Sage. Gina, would you be willing to stay on this call for a few more minutes if there's extra questions before you go over to the next one? If you're not an LTL, you can stay on here and either just listen into the Q&A or sign off when you want to. If you're an LTL, we have a separate link that you should have gotten an invite to for our next call. So that's just for local team leaders. And yes, don't forget to check out the recommended books to read. Those are not required per se, but highly recommended. They'll be super helpful to get your mind thinking and getting used to the language. Empowering Missional Disciples, the whole book, and then the first 4 chapters of Building Discipling Culture. So yeah, again, if you're LTL, going over to the next call. And for everyone else, look forward to seeing you here in January. Bring your winter coat.
Cool, guys. If there's, if some of you have extra questions, I would love to stick around for a minute and help answer them if that feels helpful.
I guess I had a further question to the hub thing.
Yeah.
So we're out in close to LA area, and I saw there was one in LA.
Yes.
So it's, the way I'm understanding it is like we would go to this immersion experience, we would get some good training and get some vision, get some ideas where we could start to plan and make something happen, come back and be like, okay, can we do things? At that point, it sounds like it's worth reaching out to whoever the people that are that live there to connect with, to just get like further insight and understanding. Like, is that, who do we contact to, or how do we do that? Do we just go through you guys and you guys can connect us to them, or should we like go to the website and do that?
Yeah. Kind of stuff? I'm so glad you asked, because Sage, we have such great leaders in LA, like amazing leaders. I'm actually going to be out in LA the week before. We have like right before I fly to Minnesota for Learning Community, we have our kind of like our core leaders from all of the different hubs are descending upon LA for the first time in 2 years. We're going to be in the same room together to do some like strategic planning and hearing the Lord together and all kinds of stuff. So we have a really great team in LA. So it would be really like hugely worth connecting with those guys. So I can connect you directly with them for sure.
Yeah, I think that'd be really cool for us to like just,
Yeah,
why not utilize them?
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, LA is vast, but you live in the same city. So it
Right,
feels
right.
like, yeah.
Unrelated question, talking about, I think it was Amy though, so she might be the better person to ask, but about the SOSA, like staff on, staff affiliate thing. I was trying to find the little layout for the immersions. Is it the highest one that's you'd recommend, like for your spouse would probably be the family on mission one to like go to? What would you guys think would be the best? Like,
I would definitely recommend that one. And I am almost certain that it's immersion 2, but I can just look it up. If you give me a quick second, I can look it up really quickly.
what's even less, it's more cool too, thinking about having the hub as well. Because if my wife didn't go to that, maybe like she can come to a meeting when we meet with some of those people from that
Mhm.
location or something and learn about that stuff. Wouldn't be as much of an immersion, I guess, though. But
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, absolutely. So we do, 3DM does spouse retreats, like team leader and spouse retreats in the summer, which would be another option to plug into one of those, which are kind of depending on different hubs, lead them at different, like in different parts of the country.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So it was immersion 2. Did you confirm if it was that one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sweet. I think it's it for me.
Cool. Anybody else? Okay. Excellent.
Caitlin, I don't know if you're still there or not, but hi.
Hi.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for this. I'm excited.
Yeah. See you guys in about a month.
Yeah, I know. It's coming right around the corner.
All right. See you soon.